Machinery for the mussel industry. An old tale tells us that mussel culture in Europe started back in the 18th century as a result of the shipwreck of an Irish ship on the French coast. Its only survivor, Patrick Walton, devised a net set on stakes and saw to his surprise how mussels fixed themselves onto them and grew. However, the true story behind the mussel culture developed on rafts is not the result of any incident or pure chance. In fact, it is based on those people who have devoted their lives, their personal resources, their own efforts, and a great deal of ingenuity to develop and improve the systems of culture, retubing, and collection of the mussel itself. Long gone are those attempts to use the Japanese system or the French stake method, the rafts with single central floats or the unsuccessful all-metal structures. The efforts of the Gallego mussel growers have finally given their fruits with the present establishment of Spain as the world's second largest mussel producer. There is no doubt that one of the enterprises closely linked with the birth of the mussel industry is Tallers Aguin SL, the pioneers in developing rope loading machines and the introduction of the tubular nets. Today, with the memories of those years of solitary work without any support from public institutions, Tallers Aguin continues its work on the improvement of the retubing machines, declumping machines, and grading tables, sold under patent all over the world to well-known Metilli growers who in turn pay tribute to its work and development. We'll now concentrate on the setting up of the machinery, although it can be transported fully mounted because of its reduced size. With regard to the grading table, we should point out that the old set of gridirons have been substituted by a single variable gap rod screen, and mention the incorporation of a fastening device for the mesh sacks used for loading and transporting mussel to avoid breakage when full. The setting up of the declumping machine is equally simple. First, the star-shaped cog is set into position. This transmits all movement to the axle with rubber blades, which in turn declumps the clusters of mussel. Finally, the height of the legs are adjusted. The declumping machine is now ready to work. Once at the raft, we analyze the two processes of declumping and retubing. But firstly, we shall set up the retubing machine. The first step is to connect it to the boat's pumping system. Then, we check that all the movable parts function properly. The tubular net is the key piece of the retubing machine. To set it into place, we use the coned funnel. two other important parts: the fabric girdle, which controls the tension on the net, and the flexible steel rod nozzle, which ensures a uniform load along the whole rope. With the bobbin of yarn on its bracket placed in such a way to ensure the correct issue of yarn, the hopper in its position and the extensible legs at the right height, we are ready to start retubing on the chosen raft. One of today's advantages is that this work can be carried out directly on board the boat and not on top of the raft as in the old days. The process of declumping is limited to loading the mussel just as it comes off the ropes onto the hopper of the declumping machine. The axle with the rubber blades declumps the mussel, which then undergoes a first grading, because the waste is separated with the use of an adjustable grating set incorporated onto the declumping machine. The mussel is fed onto the grading table, which has been previously adjusted to the required size. The mussel is then given a thorough shaking, which makes the seed fall onto the deck, thus achieving a total separation of the seed from the waste. The remaining mussel is then put into mesh sacks, which come off easily without breakage due to the holding mechanism set into the grading table. The sacks are later recycled in the preparation of new ropes to be retubed, as we shall see as follows. The process of retubing starts with the filling of the hopper and the setting up of the rope to which the end of the tubular net will be tied with the yarn from the bobbin. With the retubing machine connected up, we begin the loading of the rope. The vibrating device already installed stops the mussel getting stuck. The rope, attached by one of its ends to the boat, will begin to drop into the sea until we come to its other end. Having got there, a mechanism installed onto the retubing machine will hold the whole weight of the rope by blocking the last peg. This allows the operator to finish the operation comfortably. Lastly, we should mention several possible variations. Firstly, the yarn, which may be substituted by the manual net. Secondly, if all the mussel is to be used in the retubing process, we can do away with the grading table and work directly with the declumping machine set over the retubing machine. The results speak for themselves. An experienced person can load a whole rope manually in 20 minutes, whereas the retubing machine can do the same work in just 1 minute. The end result is that of a perfectly cylindrical rope with constant thickness. The machine's high yield levels allow us to carry out the same work with less personnel and in only a matter of days, what used to take weeks to do manually. Let us go over again some of the peculiarities of the machinery produced by Tallers Aguin. Subject to the size of the mussel, the retubing machine allows an adjustment of the thickness of the rope if we work on those levers pointed out. It is important that the pressure inlet and the return are properly connected. The rollers are kept adequately greased. We should point out the presence of the reducer, which controls the speed of the hauler, to bring the latter in line with the amount of mussel to be retubed. With regard to the grading table, we must emphasize the fact that the grading bars are interchangeable and also adjustable to size. With respect to the declumping machine, we remind you that its grader is adjustable simply by working on the wing nuts A and B, that the axle is supplied with rubber flaps, and show you the diagram of the way the motor is set up. We hope that this video has helped to show you the different alternatives that Tallers Aguin offers the mussel sector of the world.